Your mistress poisoned your son's drink!
The words tore from Petra's throat before her brain could catch up. Her voice sliced through the grand ballroom of the King Empire Hotel like a machete through silk, silencing the string quartet mid-note, freezing champagne flutes halfway to painted lips, stopping every heartbeat in the room. 300 of Seoul's most elite guests turned to stare at the black waitress who had just committed social suicide. Kang Junho, the most feared mafia boss in all of South Korea, stood frozen at the head table. His hand hovered mere inches from his 5-year-old son's juice glass. The same glass his beautiful mistress Yoon Soo-min had just personally delivered with a loving smile. Time stopped. Petra watched as Junho's dark eyes, usually cold as Arctic ice, widened with something she had never seen in him before. Fear. Pure, raw, primal fear. Not for himself. Never for himself. But for the little boy sitting beside him, the child who was reaching for that poisoned glass with innocent, trusting hands. MNJUN, don't touch it. Junho's roar shook the chandeliers. He snatched his son into his arms so fast that the juice glass toppled, spilling its deadly contents across the pristine white tablecloth in a spreading stain that looked almost like blood. The ballroom erupted. Gasps. Screams. The crash of a dropped tray. The thunder of security guards mobilizing from every corner. And through it all, Yoon Soo-min stood frozen in her blood-red gown, her face cycling through shock, fear, and finally, hatred. Pure, undiluted hatred aimed directly at Petra. How dare you, Soo-min hissed, her voice cutting through the chaos. How dare a waitress speak to us like this? Do you know who I am? Do you know what I can do to you? But Petra stood her ground. Her hands trembled at her sides. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. But she didn't back down. Because that little boy in Junho's arms? That was her son. The baby who had been ripped from her arms 5 years ago. And she would die before she let anyone hurt him. Now, before we dive deeper into this intense story, if you're new here and you love dramatic stories filled with romance, revenge, betrayal, and powerful emotions, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Trust me, this story is about to take you on a wild ride you won't forget. And drop a comment telling me what you think is going to happen next. I read every single comment, and I love hearing your theories. Now, let's get back into it. Junho's security team moved like shadows, surrounding the head table in a protective formation. But Junho's eyes weren't on them. They were locked on Petra with an intensity that made her knees weak. He was looking at her like he was seeing a ghost. Explain yourself, he commanded, his voice barely above a whisper. But in the dead silence of the ballroom, every single person heard him. Now, Petra's mouth went dry. She had spent 8 months working at this hotel, keeping her head down, avoiding his gaze, pretending she was invisible. 8 months of watching her son from across crowded rooms, memorizing his laugh, his smile, the way he tilted his head when he was curious about something. 8 months of dying inside every single day. But she couldn't stay silent while her baby's life hung in the balance. I saw her, Petra said, forcing strength into her voice. In the kitchen. 20 minutes ago. She put something in the juice. A white powder from a small vial hidden in her clutch. Lies. Soo-min's scream echoed off the crystal chandeliers. She spun toward Junho, grabbing his arm with perfectly manicured nails, her beautiful face twisted into something desperate. She's lying, Junho. Can't you see what she's doing? She's jealous. Bitter. She's probably some crazy Saesing who's been stalking our family. Are you really going to believe some random black waitress over me? Over the woman who's about to become your wife? She held up her left hand, where a 15-carat diamond caught the light and threw rainbows across the room. I love you, Soo-min continued, her voice dropping to a seductive purr. I love Minjun like he's my own son. Why would I ever hurt him? For a moment, Junho seemed to waver. Doubt flickered across his handsome features. And why wouldn't it? He had been with Soo-min for 2 years. She had been perfect in every way, beautiful, sophisticated, from a powerful family that could strengthen his organization's position. Petra felt her heart sink. He was going to believe his mistress. Of course he was. Why would he trust a stranger over the woman he was planning to marry? But then Junho spoke, and his words changed everything. Then drink it. The two words fell like bombs in the silent ballroom. Sumin's face went pale beneath her flawless makeup. What? The juice. Junho's voice was ice. If there's nothing wrong with it, you won't mind drinking it yourself. Prove this waitress wrong. Clear your name. It should be easy. He picked up the fallen glass from the table. Some juice still remained at the bottom, pooling in a puddle that suddenly looked sinister. Drink it, Sumin. This is ridiculous. Sumin laughed, but there was no humor in it. Only panic barely disguised as amusement. I don't have to prove myself to some delusional servant who. Drink. It. Junho's roar made everyone flinch. His security guards shifted closer, hands moving toward concealed weapons. The air in the ballroom crackled with tension thick enough to choke on. Sumin's composure finally cracked. Petra saw it happen in real time. The beautiful mask crumbling. The desperation bleeding through. The moment when Sumin realized that all her careful planning, all her manipulation, all her patience, it was all falling apart. And then she ran. Sumin kicked off her designer heels and bolted for the exit, shoving guests aside in her desperation to escape. Her red dress streamed behind her like flames as she sprinted across the marble floor. She made it 5 steps before Junho's men intercepted her. 2 guards grabbed her arms. A third blocked her path. She fought like a wild animal, scratching, biting, screaming obscenities that made the elderly guests cover their ears. Let me go. You don't understand. I had to do it. The words exploded from her like a confession she couldn't contain. He was never supposed to have a son with someone else. It should have been my child. Mine. I've given him everything, my family's connections, my loyalty, my body, and he still couldn't let go of her. Even after all these years, he still whispers her name in his sleep. The ballroom went deathly quiet. Petra felt like she had been struck by lightning. He whispers her name in his sleep. Could it be possible? After everything his family had done to separate them, after 5 years of believing he had forgotten her, after convincing herself that she meant nothing to him. Could Junho still love her? Take her to the basement, Junho commanded, his voice flat and deadly. I'll deal with her later. As the guards dragged Sumin away, still screaming and thrashing, chaos erupted in the ballroom. Guests scattered like frightened birds. Staff members rushed to restore order. Security guards spoke urgently into their earpieces. But through it all, Petra noticed only one thing. Little Minjun, still clutched in his father's arms, was crying silently. His small body trembled as he watched the woman he thought loved him being dragged away like a criminal. His face was pressed into his father's neck, but Petra could see his shoulders shaking with sobs. He was trying so hard to be brave. Trying so hard not to make a scene. Just like she used to do when she was scared. Her heart shattered into a million pieces. Before she could think better of it, before she could remember her place, before she could consider the consequences, Petra moved. She crossed the distance between them in seconds and reached out to touch Minjun's back with gentle fingers. Shoo, sweetheart, she murmured in Korean, surprising herself with how naturally the words came after years of practice. You're safe now. Everything is going to be okay. Minjun lifted his head from his father's shoulder and looked at her with tear-filled eyes. And Petra had to bite her lip to keep from sobbing out loud. He had her eyes. Not the shape, those were all Junho. But the color, that unusual amber brown that her grandmother used to call honey gold, that was pure Petra. Her mother had the same eyes. Her grandmother. Her great-grandmother. A genetic gift passed down through generations of women in her family. And now, her son. Why did Sumin Andy want to hurt me? Minjun asked, his voice small and broken. Didn't she love me? Petra's throat closed up. She wanted to pull him into her arms. Wanted to hold him and never let go. Wanted to tell him who she really was and beg for his forgiveness for leaving him. But she couldn't. Not here. Not like this. Some people do bad things, she said softly, even when they're supposed to love us. But that's not your fault. It's never your fault. Do you understand me? Minjun nodded slowly, his lower lip still trembling. "What's your name?" he asked. "Petra." "Petra," he repeated, testing the foreign sounds on his tongue. "That's a pretty name. Are you from America?" "Yes. I'm from a place called Atlanta." "Is it nice there?" "It's very nice. Maybe I can tell you about it sometime." Minjun's face brightened slightly. "I'd like that." "Minjun." Junho's voice made Petra flinch. She had almost forgotten he was there, holding their son, close enough to touch. She looked up and found him staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. But his eyes burned with something that made her throat tighten. Recognition. Shock. And underneath it all, something that looked almost like longing. "Come to Appa," he said softly, adjusting Minjun in his arms. "I need to talk to the nice lady about something important." Minjun hesitated, glancing between his father and Petra. "Will she come too?" Something flickered across Junho's face. Pain? Hope? Both? "Yes," he said quietly. "The nice lady and I need to have a very long conversation." He handed Minjun to his most trusted bodyguard, Park Sungjin, a giant of a man with kind eyes hidden behind a stern face. "Take him to the penthouse," Junho instructed. "Stay with him. Don't let anyone in except me." "Yes, boss." As Sungjin carried Minjun away, the little boy looked back over his shoulder at Petra. He waved, a small, hesitant gesture that broke her heart all over again. She waved back, blinking away tears. Then Junho turned to her, and his expression promised both heaven and hell. "Come with me," he commanded. Now. It wasn't a request. Petra followed Junho through the chaos of the ballroom, past the gawking guests and frantic staff members, into a private corridor that required a keycard to access. Then another corridor, even more secure. Then an elevator that scanned his fingerprint, his retina, and required a 12-digit code. The ride to the top floor took approximately 47 seconds. It felt like 47 years. Junho stood on the opposite side of the elevator, his back against the wall, his arms crossed over his chest. He didn't look at her, didn't speak, but she could feel his awareness of her like a physical weight pressing against her skin. The doors opened into a penthouse that looked like something out of a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the Seoul skyline, glittering like a sea of stars against the night. Modern art hung on the walls, pieces that probably cost more than Petra would make in a lifetime. The furniture was sleek and expensive, all sharp lines and Italian leather. But Petra barely noticed any of it. All she could focus on was the man striding toward the bar, pouring himself a generous glass of whiskey and downing it in one swallow like he was trying to burn away something inside himself. "Close the door," he said without turning around. Petra's hands trembled as she obeyed. The click of the lock sounded terrifyingly final. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Junho stood at the windows, his back to her, his shoulders tense beneath his perfectly tailored suit. The Seoul skyline sparkled behind him, a million lights that meant nothing compared to the tension crackling between them. 8 months. His voice broke the silence like a stone breaking glass. "You've worked in my hotel for 8 months. Serving drinks. Cleaning tables. Watching my son from across crowded rooms." He paused. "Did you really think I didn't know?" Petra's blood ran cold. I needed a job. Your hotel was hiring. Don't." He turned around so fast she stumbled backward. "Don't you dare lie to me again, Petra. I've had enough lies to last a lifetime." He said her name like it was a prayer and a curse all at once. Like it was a word he had whispered into his pillow at night, over and over, until it lost all meaning and became pure sound. "You knew," Petra breathed. "All this time, you knew I was here?" "The moment you walked through those doors." He stalked toward her, and she retreated until her back hit the wall. He didn't stop until they were inches apart, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, smell his cologne mixed with whiskey, feel the heat radiating off his body. "Did you really think I could forget you?" His voice was raw, broken. "Your face? Your voice? The way you looked at me like I was just a man, not a monster." "Junho, did you think I could forget the way you laughed at my jokes, even the terrible ones? The way you argued with me about everything from politics to pizza toppings?" The way you made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I could be something other than the son of a killer. Tears burned in Petra's eyes. Then why didn't you say anything? If you knew I was here for 8 months, why didn't you? Because I was angry. The admission hung between them like a blade. I was so angry at you, he continued, his voice cracking. For 6 years, I believed you had taken the money and run. That you had never loved me. That everything we had was a lie. I never took any money. I would never. I know that now. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away the tears that spilled down her cheeks. But for 6 years, I didn't know. For 6 years, I hated you as much as I loved you. And when you showed up at my hotel, I wanted to punish you. I wanted to watch you suffer the way you had made me suffer. So you just watched me? Every day. A bitter laugh escaped him. I have security footage of every moment you spent in this hotel. Every time you looked at Minjun, every time you smiled at him from across the room, every time you snuck into the supply closet to cry. Yes, I saw that too. I watched all of it. Petra felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with clothing. He had seen everything. Her pain, her longing, her moments of weakness. Why are you telling me this now? She whispered. Because tonight, you saved our son's life. His voice broke on the word "our." Tonight, you could have stayed silent. You could have let Suman kill him and walk away with no blood on your hands. No one would have known you were involved. I would never let anyone hurt him. Never. I know. Junho pressed his forehead to hers. I know that now. Which means everything I thought I knew about you was wrong. Which means I've spent 6 years hating a woman who never deserved my hatred. Petra reached up and wrapped her fingers around his wrists, holding his hands against her face. I need you to know the truth, she said. All of it. About what really happened 6 years ago. About why I left. About why I never came back until now. Then tell me. So she did. She told him about the pregnancy she had discovered 3 weeks after he left for Japan on business. The terror and joy mixed together in equal measure. The way she had practiced telling him, rehearsing the words in front of her bathroom mirror. I was so scared you would be upset, she admitted. We had only been together for 6 months. I didn't know how you would react to a baby, especially with someone like me. Someone who wasn't Korean. Someone who wasn't from your world. I would have been terrified, Junho admitted. But I would have been happy. I loved you, Petra. A baby would have just meant loving you more. She told him about his father showing up at her apartment 2 days after she discovered the pregnancy. Kang Sung-ho, the previous boss, with his cold eyes and colder smile. He had known about the baby before she had even bought the pregnancy test. His spies had seen her at the clinic. He offered me money, Petra continued. $5 million to disappear and never contact you again. He said a black woman could never be part of the Kang dynasty, but the baby's blood made it valuable enough to keep. Junho's hands tightened on her face. What did you tell him? I told him to burn in hell. A ghost of a smile flickered across his lips. That sounds like you. The smile died as she continued her story. How Sung-ho's men had grabbed her. How they had kept her prisoner in a private medical facility for the remainder of her pregnancy, monitoring her every move, ensuring the baby would be healthy. I tried to escape 3 times, she said. The first time, they caught me at the fence and broke my wrist. The second time, they drugged me and I woke up chained to my hospital bed. The third time. She couldn't finish. The memory was too painful. What happened the third time? Junho asked gently. They showed me pictures of my family. My mother in Atlanta, walking to her car. My little sister at school, laughing with her friends. My grandmother in her garden, completely unaware that a man with a rifle was photographing her from across the street. Petra's voice trembled. They told me if I tried to escape again, they would kill all of them. They told me if I ever contacted you, ever told you the truth, my entire family would pay the price. So I stopped fighting. I let them keep me locked up. And when my baby was born, she broke down completely. Junho pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. But she didn't want to breathe. She wanted to disappear into him, let his strength hold her together while her memories tried to tear her apart. They let me hold him for 1 hour, she sobbed into his chest. Just 1 hour. He was so small, Junho. So perfect. He had your nose in my eyes, and when he grabbed my finger, I thought my heart would explode from loving him so much. And then your father came into the room with his men. They took Minjun right out of my arms while I screamed. They held me down while I begged them not to take my baby. And then they put me on a plane back to Atlanta with armed guards who made sure I didn't try anything stupid. Junho's entire body was trembling now. With rage? With grief? She couldn't tell. I'll kill him, he growled against her hair. I'll dig up his grave and kill him again. He's already dead. That's why I came back. I read about his funeral 6 months ago, and I finally felt safe enough to see my son. Even if it was just from a distance. Even if he never knew who I was. Junho pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. What she saw there made her breath catch. He was crying. Kong Junho, the most feared man in Seoul, had tears streaming down his face. He told me you were dead, Junho said brokenly. My father showed me a death certificate. A grave in Atlanta with your name on it. I visited that grave, Petra. I stood there in the rain for hours, talking to a headstone, begging your forgiveness for not protecting you better. He faked my death? He took everything from us. Junho's voice was barely a whisper. 6 years. He stole 6 years from us. 6 years of watching our son grow up together. 6 years of loving each other. And I never knew. I never even suspected. Petra reached up and wiped the tears from his cheeks with trembling fingers. We can't change the past, she said softly. But we can fight for our future. Before he could respond, a pounding on the door made them both jump. Boss. Sungjin's voice, urgent and afraid. We have a situation. Junho was across the room in an instant, yanking the door open. What is it? The woman, Yoon Soo-min, she's talking. You need to hear what she's saying. Talking about what? Sungjin's face was grim. She wasn't working alone. There's someone else. Someone inside our organization. Someone who wants you and Minjun both dead. Junho's expression transformed. The grieving lover disappeared, replaced by the ruthless mafia boss who had built an empire on the bones of his enemies. Stay here, he ordered Petra. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me or Sungjin. What's going to happen? He paused at the threshold, his dark eyes meeting hers with deadly promise. That woman tried to poison my son. She's going to tell me who put her up to it. And then everyone involved is going to wish they had never been born. He was gone before Petra could respond. The next 3 hours were the longest of Petra's life. She paced the penthouse like a caged animal, unable to sit still, unable to relax, unable to think about anything except Minjun and Junho and the danger that still lurked in the shadows. She tried calling Junho. No answer. She tried calling Sungjin. Straight to voicemail. She even tried the hotel's main line, pretending to be a concerned guest. The operator told her that the hotel was on lockdown due to a private event, and hung up. Finally, just when Petra was considering breaking the window and climbing down 37 floors of sheer glass, her phone buzzed with a text. She grabbed it eagerly, hoping for news. But the message wasn't from Junho. It was from an unknown number. Enjoying your reunion? Make the most of it. You won't have much time left. Fear sliced through her like a blade of ice. Someone was watching. Someone knew she was here. And that someone wanted her dead. Petra's survival instincts kicked in immediately. She had spent 5 years learning to protect herself, taking self-defense classes, studying escape routes, preparing for the day when Kang Sung-ho's people might come for her again. She grabbed a heavy crystal vase from a nearby table, improvised weapon. She checked the windows, no visible snipers, but that didn't mean anything. She searched the penthouse for hidden cameras or listening devices, nothing obvious, but she couldn't be sure. Another text arrived. Don't bother looking. You won't find me. But I'll find you soon enough. Petra's hands were shaking as she typed a response. Who are you? What do you want? The reply came instantly. I want what was promised to me. The empire that should have been mine. The legacy your bastard son stole from me. And I want you to watch as I take it all away. Your bastard son. This person knew about Minjun, knew about his real parentage. Knew things that only someone inside the organization would know. Petra's mind raced. Who could it be? One of Junho's lieutenants? A rival family member? Someone from his father's generation who resented the new leadership? Before she could puzzle it out, a knock at the door made her jump. Miss Petra. A small voice. A child's voice. Appa said I could come see you. Please. Minjun. Petra rushed to the door and yanked it open. Her son stood there in Spider-Man pajamas, clutching a stuffed tiger to his chest. Sungjin loomed behind him, looking distinctly uncomfortable. The young master insisted, Sungjin explained. He said the nice lady promised he would be safe, and he wants her to keep him company until his father returns. I tried to explain that the boss wanted him in the secure room, but he started crying and The giant bodyguard trailed off, looking embarrassed. It's okay, Petra said quickly. I'll watch him. But Sungjin, I received threatening messages. Someone knows I'm here. Someone inside the organization. Sungjin's expression hardened. Show me. She handed him her phone. He read the messages, his face growing darker with each word. I need to tell the boss immediately. Can you keep Minjun safe until I get back? With my life. Sungjin nodded once, then pressed a small device into her hand. Emergency beacon. Press the button and every guard in the building will converge on your location within 90 seconds. Don't hesitate to use it. Then he was gone, and Petra was alone with her son. Minjun looked up at her with those honey-gold eyes, and asked, Can I come in? Of course, sweetheart. She stepped aside to let him enter, then locked and bolted the door behind him. Would you like something to drink? Some water, maybe? Can I have juice? The innocent request hit her like a punch to the gut. Just hours ago, his juice had been poisoned. How about hot chocolate instead, she suggested, keeping her voice light. I make really good hot chocolate. Okay. She led him to the penthouse's gourmet kitchen and set about making the drink, hyper-aware of every sound, every shadow, every flicker of movement outside the windows. Where are you from? Minjun asked, perching on a bar stool to watch her work. You talk different. I'm from America. A city called Atlanta. What's it like there? Petra smiled despite her fear. It's warm most of the time. There are lots of big trees and really good food. My grandmother makes the best peach cobbler in the whole world. What's peach cobbler? It's a dessert. Warm peaches with a sweet, crumbly topping, usually served with ice cream. Maybe I can make it for you sometime. Minjun's face lit up. Really? You'd make me American food. I'd make you anything you wanted, Petra said softly. Anything at all. She handed him the hot chocolate, extra marshmallows, because every child deserves extra marshmallows, and watched him drink it with careful sips. Can I tell you a secret? Minjun asked, looking around conspiratorially. Of course. Sometimes I have dreams about a lady. He lowered his voice to a whisper. She sings to me in a language I don't understand, but it makes me feel safe. When I wake up, I'm always sad because she's not real. Petra's heart stopped. She had sung to him. During those long months of captivity, when he was growing inside her, she had sung to him constantly. Old gospel songs her grandmother taught her. Lullabies from her childhood. Sometimes just humming, her hands pressed to her swelling belly, hoping he could hear her. Hoping he would remember. What if I told you, she whispered, that maybe she is real? Minjun's eyes went wide. Really? Before she could answer, the lights went out. The penthouse was plunged into absolute darkness. Minjun screamed. Petra grabbed him and pulled him off the bar stool, pressing him against her chest as she backed toward the wall. It's okay, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. It's just a power outage. Everything's fine. But everything was not fine. Because in the darkness, she could hear footsteps. Someone else was in the penthouse. Petra moved silently, carrying Minjun toward the bathroom, the most defensible position in any home. No windows. One entrance. A lock on the door. We're going to play a hide-and-seek game, she whispered to Minjun. We're going to hide in the bathroom and stay very, very quiet. Can you do that for me? He nodded against her shoulder, his small body trembling with fear. The footsteps grew closer. Petra reached the bathroom and slipped inside, easing the door shut with painstaking care. She locked it, then backed away, searching for anything she could use as a weapon. The emergency beacon. She still had it. She pressed the button. 90 seconds. She just had to survive 90 seconds. 89. 88. 87. The footsteps stopped outside the bathroom door. "I know you're in there." A woman's voice, cold and cultured and terrifyingly familiar. The black waitress who ruined everything. "Do you have any idea how long I've been planning this? How many years I've spent waiting for the perfect moment?" 72. 71. 70. "Open the door, and I'll make it quick. For you and the boy. 1 bullet each. You won't even feel it." 63. 62. 61. Petra clutched Minjun tighter and said nothing. "Fine. Have it your way." A gunshot exploded through the darkness. The bathroom door shuddered, but held reinforced steel behind the decorative wood. Thank God for paranoid mafia bosses and their security measures. 49. 48. 47. Another gunshot. Another shudder. The lock was weakening. "Appa!" Minjun screamed. "Appa! He can't hear you," the woman sneered through the door. "He's in the basement, dealing with Sumin and my idiot son. By the time he realizes something's wrong, you'll both be dead." Her son? The pieces suddenly clicked into place. The mysterious woman on the phone. The insider threatening via text. The person who wanted to destroy Junho's legacy. "You're his mother," Petra breathed. "You're Kang Min-suk." Bitter laughter echoed through the door. "So you do have a brain." "Yes, I'm Junho's mother." The woman he abandoned in a Swiss mental hospital while he played house with his illegitimate child. The woman whose husband humiliated her with affair after affair, bastard after bastard, until she finally broke. 31. 30. 29. But I'm not broken anymore. I've spent years healing, planning, preparing. My husband is dead. My legitimate son is weak, too weak to do what needs to be done. But my other son, my secret son, he has the strength to lead. He just needs the opportunity. 22. 21. 20. And that opportunity requires eliminating the current heir. Your mongrel child has no place in the Kang dynasty. He should never have been born. But don't worry, I'll make sure his death is quick. Unlike yours. 15. 14. 13. The third gunshot blew the lock completely. The door swung open, revealing Min-suk silhouetted against the emergency lighting that had kicked in. She was still beautiful in a sharp, dangerous way, with Junho's cheekbones and his father's cold eyes. And she was pointing a gun directly at Petra's head. "Any last words?" Min-suk asked pleasantly. "Yes," Petra said. "Duck." She threw herself to the floor, covering Minjun with her body, just as the bathroom window exploded inward. A figure in tactical gear crashed through, slamming into Min-suk and sending the gun flying. 5. 4. 3. The door to the penthouse burst open. Guards poured in, led by Sung-jin, weapons drawn. 2. 1. Freeze. Nobody move. The lights came back on. And there, standing in the doorway of the destroyed bathroom, was Junho. His face was a mask of rage as he took in the scene. His mother, pinned to the floor by the tactical operative. Petra, shielding his son with her own body. Minjun, crying but alive. "Yama," Junho said, his voice barely recognizable. "What have you done?" Min-suk laughed, a high, unhinged sound that sent chills down Petra's spine. "What I should have done years ago. Protecting our bloodline. Ensuring our legacy. Your father was too sentimental, keeping you in power even though you were clearly unfit. But I'm not sentimental. I never was. You tried to kill my son." "Your son?" Min-suk spat. "That thing is not your son. It's the product of your disgusting obsession with a black woman who should never have been allowed near our family. I did what your father was too weak to finish." Junho moved so fast Petra barely saw it. One moment he was in the doorway. The next, he had his mother by the throat, lifting her off the ground like she weighed nothing. "You had Petra imprisoned," he snarled. "You helped my father take her baby. You told me she was dead. You let me grieve for years while she was suffering. And now you try to murder the only good thing I've ever created." "I protected you," Min-suk gasped, clawing at his hands. "I protected our name. Our name is nothing. Our legacy is nothing. You are nothing. He threw her against the wall. Guards immediately surrounded her, pinning her down, securing her wrists behind her back. Take her to the same facility she escaped from, Junho ordered coldly. Tell them she's to be kept in isolation. No visitors. No phone calls. No contact with the outside world. Ever. You can't do this. Min-suk shrieked as they dragged her away. I'm your mother. I gave you life. And you tried to take it from my son. Junho didn't even look at her. We're even. The moment his mother was gone, Junho rushed to the bathroom where Petra was still huddled on the floor with Minjun. Are you hurt? Either of you? He ran his hands over them both, checking for injuries, his face pale with fear. We're okay, Petra assured him, though her voice was shaking. She didn't get a chance to. She was cut off by Junho pulling them both into a crushing embrace. I almost lost you, he whispered brokenly. Both of you. Again. Minjun wriggled between them, his small arms trying to wrap around both adults at once. Appa, I was so scared. But the nice lady protected me. She said she wouldn't let anyone hurt me ever. Junho looked at Petra over their son's head. His eyes were red-rimmed and wet. Thank you, he said. Thank you for saving him. Again. Petra just shook her head. I'd die for him. You know that. I know. He pressed a kiss to Minjun's hair, then one to Petra's forehead. I know you would. And that's exactly why I can't let you go. Either of you. Not ever again. Okay, we need to pause here because this story is getting so intense. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me what you think is going to happen next. Is Junho's family drama finally over? What about his half-brother? Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on because you do not want to miss how this ends. Now, let's keep going. The next few days passed in a blur of security briefings, police statements, and endless cups of coffee. Sumin had revealed everything during her interrogation, how Min-suk had contacted her through intermediaries, promising her marriage to Junho and a position of power if she helped eliminate Minjun. How Junho's half-brother, a man named Kang Tae-hyun, had been the one coordinating everything from the shadows. He's been in hiding since last night, Sung Jin reported during one of the briefings. Our sources say he fled to Busan, but we're closing in. It's only a matter of time. Junho nodded grimly. I want him alive. He has answers I need. Meanwhile, Petra had moved into the penthouse with Minjun. Neither of them wanted to be apart from the other, not after everything that had happened. And Junho, it turned out, didn't want to be apart from either of them. On the third night, after Minjun had finally fallen asleep, Junho found Petra on the balcony, staring out at the Seoul skyline. Can't sleep? He asked, coming to stand beside her. Too many thoughts. She didn't look at him. Too many years of being afraid to really believe this is real. What can I do to convince you? She finally turned, meeting his eyes. Tell me about her. The woman you married. Minjun's official mother. Junho's face tightened, but he didn't look away. Her name was Park Seo-yeon. My father arranged the marriage when I was 25, right after you, after I thought you had died. I didn't love her. I told her that from the beginning. But she understood. She knew about you. She knew about Minjun. She knew he wasn't hers. She couldn't have children of her own. A medical condition. So when my father presented her with a ready-made heir, a baby boy who needed a mother, she agreed to the arrangement. She raised him for 3 years before she died of cancer. Petra's heart clenched. Was she good to him? She loved him. Junho's voice softened. Genuinely loved him. In her own way, she gave him the mother he deserved when you couldn't be there. I'll always be grateful to her for that. I hate that I wasn't there, Petra whispered. I hate that he bonded with another woman, called her Yama, loved her. But he knew, Junho interrupted. Somehow he knew. He used to tell Seo-yeon about his dreams. The lady who sang to him in a strange language. The lady with the warm voice and the sad eyes. Seo-yeon never knew what to make of it, but I did. He took Petra's hands in his. Our son remembered you. Even as an infant, taken from you after only an hour, he remembered. He's been waiting for you his whole life. And now you're here. Tears spilled down Petra's cheeks. I'm here. And I'm never leaving again. No, Junho agreed. You're not. Because I won't let you. He pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box that made Petra's breath catch. This isn't how I planned to do this, he admitted. I had a whole speech prepared. Something romantic and eloquent that would sweep you off your feet. What happened to the speech? My mother tried to murder you, and I realized that life is too short and too dangerous to waste time on speeches. He opened the box, revealing a ring that sparkled even in the dim light. Marry me, Petra. Not for appearance. Not for the organization. But because I love you. Because I've loved you for 6 years, and I don't want to spend another minute without you by my side. Petra stared at the ring, her mind racing. This was fast, too fast by any normal standard. They had only been reunited for 3 days. There was still a threat out there, still an enemy to defeat, still years of trauma to work through. But when she looked into Junho's eyes, none of that mattered. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. His smile could have lit up the entire city. He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, because of course he'd had her measured somehow without her noticing, and then he kissed her. The kiss started soft, gentle, reverent. But it quickly deepened into something more. Something hungry. Something that spoke of years of longing and loss finally finding release. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. I want you, Junho said, his voice rough. I've wanted you every day for 6 years. But I won't push. We can wait until... Petra silenced him with another kiss. I've waited long enough, she murmured against his lips. Take me to bed, Junho. I need to feel you. He didn't need to be told twice. What followed was a night of rediscovery, of learning each other's bodies all over again, finding the places that made the other gasp or moan or cry out in pleasure. Junho worshipped every inch of her, the curves that were fuller now, the stretch marks from pregnancy that she had always been self-conscious about, the small scar on her wrist from the time she had tried to escape. Beautiful, he whispered against her skin. Every part of you. Beautiful. And when they finally came together, it felt like coming home. They made love until the first rays of dawn crept across the sky. And when they finally fell asleep, tangled together beneath silk sheets, both of them were smiling. The capture of Kang Taehyun happened 2 weeks later. Sung Jin's team found him hiding in a safe house in Busan, surrounded by the last few loyalists who had believed in Min-suk's twisted vision for the organization. Junho had him brought to the private facility where the Kang family conducted their most sensitive business, a fortress of concrete and steel hidden beneath an unassuming warehouse on the outskirts of Seoul. Petra wanted to be there, to face the man who had threatened her son's life. Junho tried to convince her to stay at the penthouse, but she refused. This is my family too, she said firmly. I have a right to see justice done. So she was there when they brought Taehyun into the interrogation room. He was younger than she expected, maybe 30, with sharp features and their father's cold eyes. But where Junho's coldness masked a depth of emotion, Taehyun's seemed to go all the way down. So this is the famous black woman who destroyed my plans, Taehyun said, eyeing Petra with undisguised contempt. I have to admit, I expected someone more impressive. Careful, Junho warned. You're in no position to insult anyone. What are you going to do, brother? Taehyun sneered the word. Kill me? You don't have the stomach for it. Father knew it. Mother knew it. That's why she chose me to lead the organization into the future. Our mother is insane. Our mother is a visionary. She understood what you refused to accept, that the Kang dynasty needs pure blood to survive. Not the diluted mongrel offspring of your jungle fever. Junho moved so fast that Petra barely tracked it. One moment he was standing behind her, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. The next, he had Taehyun pinned against the wall by the throat. You can insult me all you want, Junho said, his voice deadly calm. You can call me weak. You can question my leadership. But if you ever speak about my son or my fiancé that way again, I will forget that we share blood. Do you understand? Taehyun's face was turning purple, but he managed to choke out, why yes. Junho released him, and he collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Now, you're going to tell me everything. Every person you contacted. Every plan you made. Every resource you have hidden away. And when you're finished, you're going to spend the rest of your life in a cell where you can't hurt anyone ever again. Taehyun looked up at his brother with hatred burning in his eyes. You think you've won? This isn't over. There are others who believe as I do, who see the contamination you're bringing into our bloodline. One day, Junho interrupted, my son will inherit everything I've built. He will lead this organization into a new era. And your name will be nothing but a footnote in our family's history. A cautionary tale about what happens to those who let prejudice and jealousy consume them. He turned to his guards. Take him away. And make sure he tells us everything. As Taehyun was dragged from the room, still shouting threats and obscenities, Petra moved to stand beside Junho. Are you okay? She asked softly. No, he admitted. Discovering that my mother tried to kill my son is not something I'll ever be okay with. Learning that I have a half-brother who's a racist psychopath isn't exactly a bonus either. But he turned to look at her, and despite everything, there was something like peace in his eyes. But I have you. I have Minjun. And we're going to build something better than what came before. A family based on love instead of blood purity. A legacy worth passing on. Petra reached up and touched his face. I love you, Junho. I love you too. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice and giving me a second chance. The wedding took place 3 months later, in the garden of Junho's country estate. It was a small ceremony, only 50 guests, all carefully vetted, but it was beautiful. Cherry blossoms floated on the spring breeze as Petra walked down the aisle in a dress that blended her African heritage with Korean tradition. A geli headwrap sat proudly on her hair, and a hanbok-inspired skirt flowed around her legs. Minjun stood beside his father as the ring-bearer, practically vibrating with excitement. He had taken the news of Petra's true identity better than anyone expected, mostly because, in his words, I knew you were my dream lady. I always knew. Telling him had been one of the hardest conversations of Petra's life. She had sat him down 2 weeks after the attack, hands trembling, heart pounding, terrified that he would reject her. But instead, he had simply climbed into her lap and wrapped his arms around her neck. Why are you scared, Yama? He had asked. I already love you. This just means I get to love you more. She had cried for an hour after that. Now, standing at the altar with Junho's hands in hers, she felt those tears threatening again, but this time, they were tears of pure joy. Do you, Kong Junho, take this woman to be your wife? The officiant asked. I do, Junho said, his voice ringing with conviction. From this moment until my last breath. And do you, Petra Williams, take this man to be your husband? Petra looked at Junho, really looked at him. At the man who had loved her across years and continents. Who had mourned her when he thought she was dead. Who had fought against his own family to keep her and their son safe. I do, she said. From this moment until my last breath. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. The kiss was everything soft and passionate and full of promise. When they broke apart, Minjun was jumping up and down, clapping his hands. Yama and Appa are married, he announced to everyone. Now we're a real family. The reception that followed was a celebration unlike anything Petra had ever experienced. Traditional Korean dishes sat alongside Southern American comfort food, her grandmother's recipe for collard greens next to perfectly prepared bulgogi. A DJ played a mix of K-pop and R&B, and Petra laughed herself breathless watching Junho try to dance to Beyoncé. You're terrible at this, she teased as he stepped on her feet for the 5th time. I'm excellent at everything, he corrected. Including convincing you to marry me despite my dancing. Fair point. As the night wore on and the stars came out above the garden, Petra found herself standing at the edge of the festivities, watching her new husband dance with their son. Minjun was standing on Junho's feet, giggling as his father waltzed him around the dance floor. You look happy. She turned to find Sungjin approaching with 2 glasses of champagne. I am, she admitted, accepting one. Happier than I ever thought possible. Good. The boss deserves happiness. And so does Minjun. Sungjin paused. And so do you. After everything you've been through. Can I ask you something? Of course. Did you know? When I first started working at the hotel. Did you know who I was? Sungjin was quiet for a moment. I suspected. When the boss suddenly started spending hours reviewing security footage of the restaurant instead of running his empire, I investigated. Found the gaps in your background check. The convenient timing of your arrival right after the old boss's death. But you didn't tell him. It wasn't my place. Sungjin glanced toward where Junho was now tossing Minjun in the air, both of them laughing. Besides, I knew he'd figure it out eventually. And I knew that when he did, nothing would stop him from getting you back. You're a good friend to him. And I hope I can be a good friend to you as well. Mrs. Kong. The title sent a thrill through her. Mrs. Kong. After everything, that's who she was now. I'd like that, she said with a smile. 1 year later, Petra stood in the nursery of their home, her hand resting on her swollen belly. She was 7 months pregnant with their second child, a girl, the doctors said. Minjun had already picked out a name, Jian, meaning beautiful and virtuous. You spoil him, Junho had teased when she agreed to the name. Letting a 6-year-old name his sister. She's his sister, Petra had responded. He should have a say. Now, feeling her daughter kick against her palm, Petra smiled at the memory. Life with the Kangs was never boring. There was always a crisis to manage, a threat to neutralize, a rival family to negotiate with. But there was also love, so much love, and that made everything worth it. What are you thinking about? Junho asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her. Everything. Nothing. How different my life is from what I imagined 10 years ago. Better or worse? Better. So much better. She turned in his arms to face him. But also more complicated. More dangerous. More demanding. Having regrets? Never. She pulled him down for a kiss. I was meant for this life, Junho. I was meant for you. It just took the universe a while to figure out how to get us here. The scenic route, he agreed with a wry smile. Complete with kidnapping, murder attempts, and a psychotic mother-in-law. Don't forget the dramatic ballroom confrontation. How could I forget? You single-handedly saved our son's life by screaming at me in front of 300 guests. I didn't scream, Petra protested. I projected. There's a difference. Junho laughed and kissed her again. I love you, Petra Kong. Have I mentioned that today? Only about 12 times. But I never get tired of hearing it. Good. Because I plan to keep saying it. Every day. For the rest of our lives. And he did. Through the birth of their daughter, Jian, whose arrival filled their home with even more love and chaos. Through Minjun's first day of school, where he proudly introduced his American Yama to all his classmates and teachers. Through the challenges of raising 2 children while managing an empire. They survived it all. They survived the rival family that tried to kidnap Jian on her first birthday, only to be intercepted by Petra herself, who had been taking combat training from Sungjin and was more than capable of defending her children. They survived the tabloid scandal when a gossip magazine discovered Petra's true identity and tried to expose Minjun's parentage. Junho had the publication shut down within 24 hours, but not before Petra gave an interview that went viral, telling her story on her own terms, showing the world that she was not a victim, but a survivor. They survived Taehyun's attempted escape from prison, which ended with him in solitary confinement and Petra visiting to deliver a message of her own. You tried to destroy my family, she had told him through the bulletproof glass. You failed. And now you get to spend the rest of your life knowing that the mongrel child you wanted to kill is thriving. He's happy. He's loved. And one day, he's going to lead the organization you thought should be yours. Taehyun had screamed obscenities at her as she walked away. She hadn't even flinched. Because she was Kong Petra now. Wife of the most powerful man in Seoul. Mother of 2 beautiful children. Survivor of kidnapping, attempted murder, and years of forced separation from her baby. She had walked through hell to get here. And she would do it all again. 10 years after that fateful night in the ballroom, Petra stood on the balcony of their home, watching the sun set over Seoul. The city had become hers in a way she never expected, not because she ruled it, but because she had made it her home. Yama. Minjun called from inside. At 15, he was already taller than her, with his father's broad shoulders and her honey gold eyes. Jiyeon ate my homework again. I did not. 8-year-old Jiyeon's indignant shriek echoed through the house. I was just looking at it. You got jam on it. That was already there. Petra sighed, but she was smiling. Kids, your father will be home in an hour. Whatever the homework situation is, figure it out before then, or I'm telling him about the vase. Instant silence. Both children knew exactly which vase she was referring to, the priceless Ming Dynasty artifact that had mysteriously fallen during an indoor soccer game last week. They had begged her not to tell their father, and she had agreed to keep their secret. But it was a useful bargaining chip. She heard them scramble away, presumably to sort out the homework crisis, and allowed herself a moment of peace. 20 years ago, she had been a 22-year-old exchange student, alone in Seoul, falling in love with a man whose world was darker than she could have imagined. 15 years ago, she had been a prisoner, watching helplessly as her newborn son was taken from her arms. 10 years ago, she had been a waitress, hiding in the shadows, dreaming of a family she thought she had lost forever. And now? Now she was exactly where she was meant to be. What are you thinking about? Junho's arms wrapped around her from behind, and she leaned back into his chest with a contented sigh. You're home early. I missed you. He kissed the top of her head. I always miss you when we're apart. Even after all these years? Especially after all these years. He turned her around to face him, and she was struck, as she always was, by how much she loved this man. The gray at his temples. The laugh lines around his eyes. The way he looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. I love you, she said. Have I told you that today? Not yet. But the day is young. She laughed and kissed him, a kiss that still made her heart race after all this time. Ew, Minjun commented from the doorway. You guys are so embarrassing. Get used to it, Junho replied without breaking the kiss. I plan to embarrass you until you're at least 40. Appa. But Minjun was laughing as he turned away, and Jiyeon was giggling somewhere in the background, and the house was full of noise and love and life. Everything Petra had ever wanted. Everything she had fought so hard to reclaim. Her happy ending wasn't just an ending, it was a beginning. A new chapter in a story that would continue for generations, built on love and resilience and the unshakable bond of family. And as the sun set over Seoul and her children's laughter echoed through the halls and her husband held her close, Petra knew one thing for certain. Every moment of pain had been worth it. Every tear she had cried, every night she had spent alone, every time she had wanted to give up, it had all led here. To this family. To this life. To this love. And she wouldn't change a single thing. Wow, what a journey that was. If this story touched your heart and had you on the edge of your seat, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming stories. Drop a comment below telling me your favorite part of Petra and Junho's love story. Was it the dramatic ballroom confrontation? The emotional reunion? The moment Minjun called her Yama for the first time? I read every single comment, and your support means the world to me. Share this video with someone who needs a good love story in their life, and don't forget to like the video to help more people discover this channel. Until next time, stay blessed, keep believing in love, and remember, sometimes the best love stories are the ones where we have to fight the hardest for our happy ending. See you in the next one.